Tinubu don't go. Hidden secret exposed as Nigerian man reveal his current hideout. My dear listeners, yo, Bola Ahmed Tinubu don't go. They say Tinubu must go. A Nigerian man by name Peter has exposed Tinubu hidden secrets as he reacts to the current economic situation. The guy say whether Bola Ahmed Tinubu like him or not, he must leave office quick, quick. This guy he talk well. Make e no be like say na me dey talk am, make una hear am from the young man mouth, because the guy talk, he talk finish, no be small thing o, no be small matter the guy talk o. He drop the tori like say like person wey get all the necessary information. Make I no just talk everything, make e no be like say the whole matter na me formulate am. Make una follow me enter the studio.
You are the future of Nigeria. Continue to dream big. Do his programs and policies inspire you to dream big, Peter?
No, they do not. And I have had that statement for far too long, to continue to dream big. Thank you for having me, but let us state clearly that once Nigeria stops to glorify mediocre and incompetence in leadership, then we will begin to make progress. Because it is said that repeating the same action and expecting a different result is insanity. As a young person, when I see governance and the way political office holders conduct themselves, my belief is that Nigeria is being run by businessmen, political businessmen who see the country as cities, as customers for their personal trade, and not people who are necessarily viable for good leadership. Because it is unfortunate that 65 years after independence and 26 years after democracy, these are the same kinds of tales we hear. If the president is truly interested in laying or building a country that works for people, it is not about handing out cash or handing out bailouts or whatever to the youth. As my colleague rightly said, the issues of youth are the issues of Nigeria. Youth do not exist in a vacuum. We have families, we have mothers, we have siblings. The strength of every democratic nation is in the strength of its institutions. And we must move away from these plethora of talks about trying to lay a foundation for 65 years. How long does it take to lay a foundation and then we build on it? The strength is supposed to be the strength of our institutions. And when I look at the President Tinubu administration, two things come to mind and I'll quickly tell you. Number one, the action of the president on the state of Rivers State. This is not talking about whether the declaration of a state of emergency was right or wrong, but I want to point out how the institutions are crumbling under this administration that claims to be helping the youth. The presidency woke up and suspended a duly elected governor and swore in a sole administrator before the National Assembly ratified. The National Assembly, that is supposed to be the hallmark of a democracy for checks and balances, decided to ratify with a voice vote and setting aside the necessary two-third majority that should have voted. And then the judiciary, that is supposed to be the last hope of the uncommon man, for 6 months was unable to sit and look at whether how legal or legitimate was the declaration. So across board, in a country that wants to produce a society viable for the youth, we are seeing executive, legislative and judicial recklessness and irresponsibility. So for me, I think that it is more of talk and less of action. And secondly, the president talked about removing the corrupt oil subsidy. The problem with the subsidy regime in Nigeria that should have benefited the youth was not just subsidy, it was the corruption in the subsidy regime. Can President Tinubu come out and state clearly how much exactly have I saved from May 29, 2023 to today, October 2025? Imagine a British Prime Minister or a US President taking a serious reform as removal of subsidy, and the citizens do not know exactly how much was saved. So if you say fuel subsidy was corrupt and you took it out, and Nigerians do not know how much exactly was saved, where it is being reinvested to, how it is plugged into affecting the lives of the youth and other citizens, then it is decentralization of corruption. We should not be talking about increasing allocation to politicians or governors without accountability. So if there is no transparency and accountability in governance and a deliberate attempt to strengthen the institutions, what are the hopes of the youth or the young persons? The only way that President Tinubu can prove that he truly loves the youth is ensuring that we have an electoral process that is seamless, that is credible, where young people who have the character and the capacity can vie for positions without violence and without being, witch hunted, and get into the system to become the leaders of today, because tomorrow we are talking about is today that we are talking. So I think it is mischievous to have good talks and then we see direct actions that undermine the integrity of our institutions and the capacity of citizens to live as decent human beings in a democracy.
I could walk through some of the points that the president made about, this administration giving wings or continuing to give wings for the youth to fly, how youths are encouraged to, as Bukola said, dream big and all of that. But I think it's clear now that Nigeria's problem is youth problem. So we shouldn't maybe separate it. If it's the economy, he's talking about the youth because we're 70%. Again, there's always a lot of dispute about that percentage. If it's security, the youth are also at the receiving end, either on both sides of it. But let me go back to Dr. Agbiti Douglas and speak to what the young Nigerians, again, it's a very tricky one, what Nigerians need right now. Because for the president, he reeled out a lot of the achievements of his government, how the economy has grown beyond even the projection, balance of trade, the naira to dollar stabilizing and all of that. Why does it seem as though he gives out a lot of things being done, but when people look at it, it's hard for them to pick what is really affecting me? So is it a disconnect between what is being done and what is expected in terms of what is demanded and what is supplied? Is it that people see these things and they choose to look away? What exactly is the issue here? Because I think time and again we've come to this point and we've glossed over it.
Ayo, that's a really great question. And interestingly, I think the president himself answered it when he gave the speech yesterday. He said that, and I'm paraphrasing loosely, that even though, there's been all this work, that they are trying to do, his administration is trying to do to strengthen and build the economy, ultimately, his administration is going to be judged by the quality of education, how safe, we feel as Nigerians, the food that we eat, what goes into our bellies. So, yes, work has been done, but the price of food is still really high. Cost of transportation is really high. Rent prices are really high. So the truth of it is stuff may be given out, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient. And then it also brings me back to a point that we had earlier on about, the president said all hands need to be on deck. But what does that look like in practice? When we were coming up with these solutions, when the administration was coming up with these solutions and developing the funds, was there a co-creation process? Did they sit down with, young Nigerians, with civil society when they crafted and designed these solutions? Or did we sit down? Because again, as a country, all of us do this. We sit in our corners, we think about what we think is good for Nigeria. And on paper, we may not be wrong, but we're a complex country. There are all these nuances. And at the end of the day, government is there to serve its citizens. So you may come up with great policies that are great on paper, but if your citizens don't feel a sense of ownership or involvement, or feel that it connects with the concerns they actually have, it will be DOA, right? So 510,000 young Nigerians are benefiting from support in schools. But you're talking of 510,000 young people compared to, again, like you said, even if we want to debate the percentage, we'll still use that 70%. 70% of a projected 200 to 234 million people is a huge number, and 510 only begins to scratch the surface. And even of that 510, there's already murmurings and complaints and concerns about the process and how that is being distributed. So again, what I will say is, as a country, really truly, if we do want to get it right, the way we develop policies, the way we implement them has to be inclusive. And I think, again, it goes back to that point of all hands being on deck. All hands being on deck doesn't just mean that we have some of us sat at one level making decisions solely. It does mean that when it comes to decision making, coming up with solutions, all voices, all perspectives need to be at the table and need to be factored into how we design and then eventually go on to implement our solutions. Nigeria's problem is not in coming up with solutions. It's usually how they are crafted and then ultimately the sustaining and implementing them in the long run. So I mean, I'll end my response here.
So you made a significant point earlier that got me thinking that if the predominant issues of Nigeria are youth issues, being the predominant number of the population, then why are Nigerian youths not showing up as they ought to in the political space? Because when you consider that the crop of leaders that have ruled in the past rose to national prominence in their 30s or in their 40s. So is it a challenge of not showing up, or is it that the political space is limiting for Nigerian youths? Peter, I'd like you to take that.
Thank you very much. I think the answer is obvious. President Tinubu praises himself as one of the supporters of the June 12th mandate, the MK Abiola, struggle, which of course was premised around free and fair elections. And today the system has become, 30 years later, we cannot have leaders who will come out and commit to a process that will be free, fair, credible, and peaceful. Do you know that in 2023, in the home state of the president, and this is on record and reported, citizens were physically beaten out of polling units in Lagos State for looking like a certain tribe. And if that is not an issue to political actors and leaders, then there is high-level mischief. It is not about the youth not wanting to be part of it. It is a deliberate attempt at making the process become so violent and become so difficult that not only the youth, even persons of decent character and integrity will rather stay away. And that is why you hear the usual slogan, politics is a dirty game. Today, women are struggling to have, compensated seats in the Senate or in the Parliament. Why? Because they believe that the process has become too rigorous for people who are non-violent or want to maintain a peaceful disposition to sail through. If you look at the entertainment sector, for example, where the youth took charge of that industry and have made a fortune out of something that was almost nothing without little or no support from the government, it then means that given the opportunity, Nigerian youth have proven to be ingenious and enterprising and ready to take every opportunity. But then you see a government that sets a not too young to run bill into place, and then the cost of the nomination form is about 100 million. So you are not too young to run, but you are also too poor to run. So across boards, it is not a matter of just paying lip service to these issues. If President Tinubu is interested in the welfare of the youth, no population will go by handing out handouts. Since from President before Tinubu, even the Buhari administration, we had the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Hajia Umaru Sadi. They said we were doing conditional cash transfers. How much and how many persons were pulled out of poverty? The Minister of Finance recently made a pronunciation that almost 400 billion have been distributed to about 30 million Nigerians. And my dear sister and my brother in the studio, how many persons do you know that benefited, or have you received your own share of that? Nigerians will not move forward through handouts. It is through policies that are going to enable persons of integrity and character to get into the system. And that is what Nigerians must insist on. Because as it is today, the National Assembly that should carry out checks and balances have become almost an extension of the presidency. It is the APC town hall where the president is greeted with his political mantra. The judiciary has proven that it has become the last hope of the uncommon man. So it is up to Nigerians to come together, mobilize and insist that the right thing be done, and we the youth will not be waiting to be given the opportunity, but take up the leadership and insert ourselves into the equation.
And indeed, the engagement has begun here, but hope.
God go bless you, my brother. They say truth. They good to talk. If you talk calm, now waiting bad in it. Imagine, look at everything has been said clearly. See, let me tell you something, my dear listeners. Whether you like it or not, this very administration has done more harm than good to the society. Whether you like it or not, this administration has caused destruction and also caused damage in the life of many people. Imagine, look at it. Look at the question put before this very young man, and see how this young man was able to dissolve it. Is it true that people refused to participate in the election, in the presidential election conducted by the Nigerian government? Or is it true that the young people refused to participate when it comes to political positions in Nigeria? It is not true. It is not true. It is because Nigerian government have decided to place that very position higher than the youth in Nigeria. Imagine in a situation whereby they place the cost of purchasing a presidential form or a senatorial form to 100 million. Tell me, where do you expect a promising youth with a bright future to be able to get such an amount of money? Where do you want him to go and steal? Of course no. It means that you are completely and indirectly omitting that very youth away from that opportunity. And that is the truth. Now, on the part of the voting process, during the presidential election, just like my brother here have said, in Lagos State, in Bola Ahmed Tinubu's own state, some youths queued to thumbprint and vote for a particular party, only for them to be beaten to stupor just because they refuse to thumbprint for APC. If you are not for APC, they will ask you to leave the queue. Unless you are for APC, then they will not allow you to retain the queue. My dear listeners, in fact, everything concerning the Tinubu administration is completely upside down and has completely passed a very wrong message to the public. My dear people, I beg you to help me share this video, because this video is comprehensive and it has passed a very good information to the public. Please help me share this video, like and subscribe, and make sure that you send messages, because I will be willing and very much ready to respond with ease. Thank you.